I want to follow that rousing delivery there. Great. Certainly it's my pleasure to be here on behalf of the Ontario Secondary School Teachers Federation. For those of you who don't know, we represent about 60,000 education workers in the province of Ontario, which includes thousands of university sector staff who work across Ontario at various universities in support roles, including here at the University of Guelph. So we are very pleased today to be right across Ontario, members of our elected executive, including my colleague Rob Gasho, our Vice President. Everywhere where there is a rally happening on university campuses, members of executive are there. All of our executive is out all across Ontario today attending these rallies, as well as our staff, and we certainly have some members too from some of your sister campuses here, and we're quite pleased to be here and to not just express our solidarity with you and to share that our belief that the concerns about what's going on in this province with this new government are concerns that really should be shared by everybody in this province. You know as well as I do that this man thinks that he's got the mandate of 40% of this province who showed up and voted in that last election. That's not how I read it. 60% of this province showed up and didn't vote for this premier, and he's acting like he has a mandate to do whatever he wants, and that the people of Ontario wanted him to go about doing these things. And this is a university. I'm sure a lot of you do a lot of research and reading, and I embarked during the last election campaign to read his platform, but unless you know about his hiding place, I couldn't find a platform from Premier Ford because he put nothing on paper. So he committed to doing nothing, and he's punch drunk with power, and we are in his path. And I can tell you that if you're willing to stand with us and students across this province and the other sectors that are going to be steamrolled by some of his policies, he's going to have a hell of a hard time getting through all the people that are going to be standing in his way. Because we have learned as an organization, and we've been around for 100 years, and we have fought hard for working conditions that we are proud of and we don't make apologies for. What we have learned in 100 years is that the only power we have to stop governments from delivering policies and laws that advantage the rich over the poor and the elites over the working class is the power of the people. And when we stand together, he is not going to be able to get what he wants. It is the only tool we have, and we call that solidarity. So I share with you some of these key points on behalf of OSSTF. We certainly know that in Ontario, because of the work we do representing thousands of members who work in the university sector, that Ontario ranks last in per student funding for universities in this country, and that is an absolute shame. And this government is going to make it worse, and it's the fault of previous governments too. The fact is the universities are not being funded at a level, and where is the onus on that funding resting upon? It's resting on the backs of students, and it's high time it stopped happening. We also know that your tuition rates have been so high for so long, and you have been left on the hook for secondary underfunding for longer than many of you have been alive. And there's a lot of young people here, and the reality is it's been going on for a very long time. And this government's move, which he is painting under the guise of supporting students, I think his phrase is for the students. He's not for the students, he's for his friends. This 10% tuition cut, that would be great news if that was what was really happening. And really, this is just another example of this premier using sleight of hand to get what he really wants, which is reduced deficits to fund rich tax cuts for his friends. And it's absolutely reprehensible. So as you bear the lion's share, it is a shame, as you bear the lion's share of this load, the only difference that's going to change with these new moves is you are going to be faced with mounting student debt and hefty interest payments the moment you get to the stage to collect your diplomas. And we want to partner with you to ensure that this government gets a very clear message from your sector that is absolutely clear to us what your real plan is here, and we're not going to stand for it. So I say to you, if it isn't bad enough, all of those things that this government is doing, we also know that his efforts to undermine the important role that student unions play on campuses across our province is probably one of the most serious things this government has done in their short time in office. This is what this government does. They anticipate where the opposition is going to come from, and they take efforts in advance to dismantle organizations who will seek to oppose and challenge them and ask them questions. God forbid there be an organization on this campus that's prepared to ask elected officials tough questions. So they're going to attempt to dismantle you by making your funding unstable. You know, and some years ago, when I was a university student union leader at Lakehead University in Thunder Bay, it's when I first realized that the real power rests in the hands of the people who are prepared to rise up and stand in opposition to governments who have lost their way. This government isn't even a year in and they've lost their way, and you should all be committing to fighting back against the government's efforts to undermine your student union. Your student union and student unions across this province are responsible for providing opportunities for people from marginalized communities. They're the ones who have fought to bring forward opportunities for benefit plans on campuses. They negotiate greater rates on things because they know that finances are always difficult when you're a university student, and on and on and on. Your student union is your friend. This government is not your friend. So I'll say to you in closing, again, where I started. The Ontario Secondary School Teachers Federation is with you. And other organizations who are in the path of this government's bulldozer need to stand strong. We need to stand together, and we should do everything we can to challenge this government to answer the questions we have, not hide in their vehicles or stay on the other side of campus. They need to be out here, and they need to be speaking to you, and they need to be responding to your questions, because this government wants nothing less than being asked tough questions. Try phoning anybody at Queen's Park in the Progressive Conservative Party. They're not answering their phones. It's like they've removed all the phones at Queen's Park. But you know what? There's other ways to send messages than the phone. And these rallies are an important part of it. You're going to see lots of these in Ontario. I liken it back to the days when we had a PC government in 1997, when every single member of my organization, the Ontario Secondary School Teachers Federation, walked off their jobs. We had no strike mandate. We simply closed our classroom doors and walked out onto the street. And nobody in Ontario went through a school door because the people said, it's not going to happen under our watch. And we did achieve some concessions then. And we will make no apologies for it. And if the time comes for this organization and campuses across this province to rise up and stand strong in the face of these government cuts, you can bet your lifesavers that OSSTF is going to be there with you. Thank you.